It's 6:22 in the morning. I've just got up after having a complete, straight sleep throughout the night. The only time that has ever happened to me is when I was on, I tried sleeping pills. And I slept through the night, never woke up once. And then about an hour or so after getting up, I was back in bed and I slept the entire day because the entire time my body was fighting against the sleeping pills. So I slept, but my body got no rest. So they had the opposite effect. I mean, no, they didn't really. They made me sleep. They just didn't make me rest. But why have I slept straight all night? Because the night prior, I decided, you know what? I'm pulling an all-nighter because I want to play Palworld. That game has fucking ruined me. Not even Baldur's Gate 3 made me want to play it so much that well, no, I did want to play it, but I also wanted to be responsible. But Palworld is it's so fucking addictive. And that night, I decided that I was going to move my base. And you can only carry so much. If you go up a certain threshold, you walk. And I managed to get to a percentage where I was walking very, very, very slowly. I was moving, but barely. But I did it. But when you get to a certain weight, you cannot move. And I've got so much wood and stone in the first camp that I've just had to leave it there because it would take me an entire day to move it over in singular 100 stacks. But I moved the majority of the camp over to this new location and it's working well so far, except I kind of need a staircase to make it work. And I can't build one. The tools in the game, as of right now in early access, are not there to build a proper staircase so the pals can come and go. Instead, they're going around the corner and getting stuck a lot of the time in certain areas. So I have to pick them up and throw them back in their basic space. And it's a pain in the ass because whenever I try and build something up above, in the above area, some of them will run up to try and help me, but it's no, you stay down there and work on the fucking garden, for fuck's sake. You grow your shit. You grow food to keep the workforce fed. Stay the fuck in your place, bitch. But I'm loving it. I understand there's a controversy because, if you watch my top 5 videos last year, I think pretty much 3 of the 5 games on that list had controversies. It's just par for the course now. This is why we can't have nice things, because anytime we do have a nice thing, somebody has to take issue with it. I think it's pathetic. I will say, there are one or two pals in that game that do cross the line, right? There's one that looks exactly like Gigantamax Eevee, so much so that I do think it might actually count as plagiarism. And then there's one that looks like an extremely awkward fusion of Serperia and Primarina. It just doesn't look right, and it's so specific that it's that feels, you know, that meme where people have made their own superhero and it's just a mix of Wolverine and Spider-Man and Batman or something like that. That's what it feels like. You know, they haven't really made their own character. They've just very lazily mixed some very obvious parts. But then we've got characters creatures like Lovander, which is literally just a parody of Salazzle. They've taken Salazzle and they've stated clearly what the Pokemon game hints at, in that this is a creature that is obsessed with sex. that fucking chases after humans as well as pals and has her way with them. Which is why getting that as a raid is one of the scariest things in the fucking world. It's only happened once. I've never seen her again, which is terrifying. But, yeah, she drops cake and mysterious fluids when you kill her. I actually managed to capture that first one, but she's got crappy traits, so I've never used it. But I do like it. It's one of my favorites. I just think it's hilarious. I love Salazzle anyway in Pokemon, so it makes sense. And then there's a few that people are saying you're copying Pokemon that are literally just cartoon animals. A Firefox is copying Vulpix. Is the web browser copying Pokemon as well? Is every Fire Kitsune fucking fox kind of design in history one of the most common fucking things in the world? Like, is the cartoon penguin copying Pokemon? Was Club Penguin copying Pokemon, for fuck's sake? It's so fucking stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Pokemon does not own the concept of cartoon animals, nor do they own the concept of, like, plant humanoids, like plant people. They don't own these concepts. The one that looks exactly like Gigantamax Eevee, I agree. Yeah, I think that is blatant plagiarism. And the one that looks like an awkward fusion of Primarina and Serperior, I think that crosses a line as well. But like 90% of the roster is either inspired by, in terms of Lovander, or they've taken color palettes a lot. There's one that looks like Decidueye. There's one that looks like Hisuian Decidueye in terms of color. There's a bird that has taken the color palette of Staraptor. And then there's one that's taken the color palette of there's another bird that's taken the color palette of Xatu. Where it's like, this didn't happen in a vacuum. It's pretty obvious where you've been inspired by. But it's just like, the meme that's going around crazy right now is that comparison video between Dragon Quest and Pokemon. You know why that happened? Because the guy who made Pokemon loved the Dragon Quest series. That's why that happens. Because he loved Dragon Quest. And a lot of the Pokemon we grew up loving was because he grew up loving Dragon Quest. Pokemon was an extension of the love he had for that series. And parody doesn't work when it's designed to hate. When it's designed to as pure hate. There's a reason, for example, why the Robot Chicken Star Wars parodies worked. Because it was made by people who love Star Wars. You know? There's a reason why that works. If you're parodying a property, it doesn't work if it's made from hate. You know, if it's made from something you have no respect for whatsoever, parody works when you actually know what you're parodying. And that's one of the things that makes Palworld work, is it's an obvious parody of Pokemon. Because Pokemon is such an idyllic world. Yeah, bad people exist, but they're so, like, in such a minority in comparison to the rest of the world. The Pokemon world is filled to the brim with trustworthy, trusting, good-natured, helpful people that will do everything they can to help their fellow man and Pokemon. That's not the real world. People exist, but unlike in the Pokemon world, the average Pokemon citizen is kind of the minority in the real world, right? Not that I'm saying most people are assholes, because they're not. It's too early to bark. Am I going to have to pause this? But it's just like, yeah, it's just like, I've lost what I was saying now. I was frightened of dogs barking. It's too early in the morning for them to start fucking barking. But, pause. Too easily distracted. But yeah, parody of properties only work when people have a love and understanding of the things they're parodying, right? And that's what made Palworld work, because let's face it, if Pokemon was real, they would be exploited to fuck. There'll be all kinds of regulations around them, and it would not be like the magical world that Pokemon is. I've spent the last few weeks watching Pokemon, catching up with the anime. Journeys is incredible, by the way. Journeys is legitimately good. It's funny how the Pokemon games started going downhill around Gen 6. I have loved every one of them, don't get me wrong. Loved every one of them, except the Diamond and Pearl remakes, but I don't like Diamond and Pearl anyway, so that doesn't really matter. It's the exact same game for the most part, so of course. I was hoping they'd improve it, so I'd like it, but they didn't, really, except the underground thing. But yeah, like, but I love Pokemon, don't get me wrong. I love monster taming games. One of my favorite games last year was Cassette Beasts, which is not Pokemon, and that was called Pokemon. Here's the thing, if you've been following someone like Gym Leader Ed for a while, if you've been interested in monster tamers for a while, like fucking Nexomon and Disc Creatures and fucking god, there's so many. I can't like obviously Digimon, Metabots we've not heard of for years, but you get the idea. If you've been following monster tamers for a long time, every fucking single one of them gets called a Pokemon clone by the mainstream. Every one of them. Because Pokemon is the only thing that... Pokemon was apparently the first and only ever monster tamer. Not Dragon Quest. Not Shin Megami Tensei. Fucking Pokemon. No, it popularized it, but it didn't make it. Pokemon popularized monster tamers. And you know what? I'm glad it did, because I love Digimon. I love Metabots. I love everything that came out around the same time that tried to do this, because there is something fundamentally awesome about monster tamers. I love animals. I've grown up loving animals. So any kind of fucking mechanic that allows me to tame and make friends with, like, magical creatures, I'm all over. I love Ni no Kuni for the same reason. I played a hunter in World of Warcraft for the same reason. I'm playing a warden in Elder Scrolls Online for the same reason. Anything that brings me closer to animals or magical creatures, I'm all over. I just love this kind of formula. So Palworld is a piss take, because it is a world full of, like, there's, I think, a PETA organization. There's, like, poachers and people, like exploiting these creatures and using them as factories, and you eat them. And it's just like, these are all things that happen in the Pokemon world, but they're all things that kind of get brushed aside to keep that pretty, perfect, serene, like, utopia that doesn't make any sense when you stop to think about it for a few minutes, kind of like Pokemon World, right? And that's kind of what makes Palworld work, because... Palmon. That's kind of what makes Palworld work. I don't like Ark. I don't like Ark. I don't like Rust. I don't like the Forest. I don't like the Raft. I don't like any of these crappy fucking... fucking streamer, like, for streamer made goddamn early access Steam games, right? To me, they're basically made for YouTubers and streamers to have content. Because without YouTubers and streamers, I don't think these games would really get anywhere. But they're perfect for YouTubers and streamers to fuck around with. But outside of that, they're not great. Palworld's the first one of these I've ever played that I'm actually enjoying. Now, I have heard from people that the people making this has made a few games other than this, and every one of them have suffered with feature creep and bloat. Let's hope it doesn't get to that point with Palworld, because I think Palworld is perfect right now. In terms of, like, basic content. There's still a lot more for me to capture. There's still a lot more for me to see and make and upgrade and all that kind of thing. I'm about, like... level 34, something like that. I've recently found Lovander in the wild. I've been trying to farm her because I want her on my main team, because I really like that one. I've been riding around on a big wolfie that I've upgraded to all fuck. I've got more powerful ones. I just love the wolf, so I'm using it. But, no, what makes this work is that it is a parody of monster tamers. It's a parody of Pokemon, and it's, quite frankly, something we don't often see. We do not often see monster tamers with a brutal side. even among monster tamers, the brutality of what that could be is something we do not see. Even in the fucking, like, Monster Hunter spin-off, Monster Hunter Stories, we didn't see it in that either, and that would be perfect for it, but they cutesified it for Monster Hunter Stories. There's just something about this genre that make people think it's for babies, despite how complicated it could be, how mechanically kind of, like, convoluted a lot of these games can be. I think the only one that really comes close is Digimon every now and again, but that's mainly in flavor text, which at that point, Pokemon's exactly the same. Pokemon is brutal if you just look at flavor text and the Pokedex and things like that. So it's just like, But this is the first time I think we've seen a monster tamer that, I mean, I suppose you could count the Shin Megami Tensei games as well. They can be pretty brutal, but I think Shin Megami Tensei it's just more with the themes of the occult more than anything else, because Shin Megami Tensei goes into the occult a lot, and that is inherently going to be dark and, like, brutal at times, but it doesn't hit the same way. It hits like your average, like, or like mid-2000s emo band a lot of the time with Shin Megami Tensei, where it's very kind of like, it feels more edgy than anything, if you know what I mean, like, kind of stylistically edgy rather than actually edgy, whereas this, like, butchering a cute little lamb, like, creature that looks like a cartoon, like, sheep, that's brutal. That's brutal, you know. So maybe the themes of the Shin Megami Tensei games, but again, like, outside of Shin Megami Tensei, we just don't get it, and people don't think of Shin Megami Tensei like a monster tamer. So yeah, I mean, it's unique. It's unique. And the getting your, like, base set up so it's mostly automated and you just have to bring them food every now and again. So you're mainly focused on exploring, on finding new resources, on finding new portals, on new bosses, on new world bosses, on new dungeons, which I've only just found out are a thing through exploration. I've played I played like 2-3 days worth, and then I found out that dungeons exist, so that's fun. And there's unique pals that you can only seem to find in here. Cool. Hatching a bunch of eggs. I've got the thing to breed, but I don't know how to make cake to breed, unless you can only get cake from Lovander. All the more reason for me to get Lovanders. But yeah, I'm loving it. I think it's brilliant. And the fact that I love it so much that I've decided to fuck my sleep up by pulling an all-nighter so I could move the place and then couldn't pull myself away. Legitimately. I was playing and I'm like, oh, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm already late for bed. I should really get to bed. And then a thought crossed my mind where I'm like, unless I pull an all-nighter, I don't have to do anything tomorrow. My events are off this week. The only thing that I really need to do is on the weekend and Monday. So I pulled an all-nighter. Hope they don't bark. Any sound, and I pulled an all-nighter, which I've not done for about 4 years now. I've tried to be a responsible adult. I've pulled an all-nighter, and I've also just found it easier to sleep these days. I pulled an all-nighter. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I ordered Starbucks. First time I've had Starbucks for a while. And then I was up all day. I had about 4 cups of coffees that day, which is like a lot more than I usually have. And I managed to stay awake all day. There were a few moments where I started to crash. And every single time I started to crash, I'm like, right, I'm going to have to do something. Do the dishes, walk the dogs, do some housework, go up to a family member's house, do something for him, so on and so forth. Every single time I'm like, shit, okay. I needed to move. So I moved, I did something, but yeah, like, I'm fully expecting to put weight on this week, because I've mostly had a lazy week, because mostly all I've done this week is finish off Pokemon Journeys, which is amazing. It's the best the anime has ever been. I fucking adored Journeys. I've ended Pokemon with Ash's Reign actually liking Ash. Never used to like Ash. He used to annoy me, but in Journeys, he's actually matured a lot. It's like I've said before. It's funny how the Pokemon games started getting meh around Gen 6, but the anime started getting good around Gen 6 because it was meh before then. Outside of nostalgia, the Pokemon anime is fucking terrible before Gen 6. Gen 6, 7, 8, 9. Like, I don't know about 9 yet. But the Gen 6, 7, and 8 anime is, it's perfection. But the actual fucking games around that time, that's when things started to go downhill. I've enjoyed them, but yeah. But the fact that I just decided, you know what, I'm pulling an all-nighter. I'm thinking about Palworld all the time. I want to play it all the time, and I can't put it down when I do because it's like Monster Hunter. It's like once you start, you cannot put it down because the rotation of explore, come back, make sure everything's up to date with your base, store shit, go out again. The only issues I'm having with the game is the pathing for the pals because they can't figure shit out. I keep having to move them, especially in this new place. It's bigger, I can put more stuff in it, but the pals are having difficulties getting around. And also, I wish that I could turn up certain features that the pals have. I don't need you guys running up here to help me build. I don't need, I've got one on it. You don't need to come up here. You know, I'd like to actually set them on something. It's kind of like The Sims, you know, where The Sims either have too much free will and they just waste away, or they have no free will and they just waste away. You know what I mean? It's like they have too much free will that you can't get them to actually do anything you want them to do, but if you actually force them to do a specific task, they won't be smart enough to get up and take a shit when they need one, you know what I mean? It's like that with Palworld, where it's like, I mainly just have them on auto work, but I would like for them to do specific tasks, but if I throw them on specific tasks, 90% of the time it doesn't work. But this is a consistent complaint, so hopefully it's like the first major patch is fixing the AI of the pals. That will be a game changer. But I'm loving it, and it is the first month of 24, and I already have a game for my top 5 games of the year list. It's going on there. We're going to have another amazing year like we had in 23 for it to not be on that list. The placement remains to be seen. I've changed my rules over the past few years where I don't have to finish games if I feel strongly enough about them. And I'll count early access games. I'll count, you know, games that aren't finished yet. It really just depends on how much that game has hit me. It's all emotional response. How much that I enjoyed that game, how much it's hit me, how much I'm thinking about it, how much of an effect it's had on me. That is where it comes down to what my top 5 of the year. I don't really have any self-imposed rules anymore beyond it needs to have come out this year. Whether it's early access or whatnot. Now, with Baldur's Gate 3, that officially launched. I didn't count the early access, but there was also not another game in there to count an early access. But for games like this and The Coffin of Andy and Lele, I think it's justified. The Coffin of Andy and Lele doesn't have a lot of gameplay, but what is there is fucking phenomenal, and deserves the attention. So there's no hard line rules really anymore. It's just something I do at the end of the year, and I love doing every year. It's the favorite video I make every year. I love it. It's like the one I put the most effort into every time. And I think last year's one was probably my best. But a few issues, but yeah. But no, I love Palworld. I think it's great. And like as I've said on social media, these past few weeks, all I've done is like watch Pokemon because I've been catching up with Journeys. And I love it. I've been playing it because I've been playing I started this last year, but I got burned out around June. And after playing Platinum, Soul Silver, White, Black 2, X, and about 70% of Auras, like Alpha Sapphire, you would as well. So I got burned out around June. I've been playing it again this year because the servers for Pokemon are officially, well, the servers are officially going down in April. So I've not got long. So I finished through Sapphire and I've jumped on to Pokemon Moon. I'm playing Moon, not Ultra Moon, Moon. I might play Ultra Moon, but I'm playing that at the moment. And fuck, I forgot just how much they hold your hand in that game. I'm several hours in, and they will not leave me alone to fucking play the game. I love the Sun and Moon games for the Pokedex and the extra features and just the general vibe of that area. But my biggest complaint about Sun and Moon is they never just let you fucking play. You are being talked at constantly. Go up a path. Talk. Go up, talk. A little bit more. Talk. Like, the dialogue is insane because they never just let you play. You just want to play and they never let you play. They're talking at you constantly. You go up a narrow path and you're being talked at again. Oh, it drives me nuts. Something I hated about Sword and Shield as well. Like, Hop or Hal or whatever that one's name is never leaves you the fuck alone. He's even annoying in the anime as well. I fucking hate that character so much. But yeah, the Journeys anime has been amazing. I've been loving playing for the games again. So I've been Pokemon, right? So I am a Pokemon fan. I'm a Monster Tamer fan. Cassette Beast last year was on my top 5 list. And Palworld is great. Palworld is really cool. It's interesting seeing a Monster Tamer become this successful. It's insane how successful this is. The price is to do with that as well, because it's pretty cheap, like 20 odd quid. That's a steal these days, considering the fact that most AAA games are around 60 fucking quid. That's an insane price. So people are more willing to jump on board with it, and it's very good. It's legit very good. It's not perfect, but it is legit very, very good. I'm loving it. And yeah, I think I love Pokemon. I love this. I love Monster Tamers. I love this. Not every Monster Tamer that comes out is fucking Pokemon, is a Pokemon clone. I'm so sick of hearing that. There is some debate with this one because they have taken color palettes. There are obvious fusions in there, such as the Superior Primarina one. And the one, I forget what it's called, but there's one that is it's just Gigantamax Eevee, just in tiny form. It's just Eevee. There's no way that thing would have been made if Eevee didn't come before it. So there's a few in here that are like, that crosses the line a little bit. But overall, the vast majority of the roster is either generic, like, cartoon animals, generic, monster plant people, or just unique designs. There are some that are obvious inspiration. There's one or, like, Lovander, there's one or two that I think cross the line a little bit, but for the most part, it's perfectly fine. I think the biggest thing with Palworld is if you say Pokemon wasn't an inspiration, you're a dumbass. You're lying to yourself. But if you're saying this game is a fucking rip-off of Pokemon, have you even seen this game, or have you just heard, like, the meteor sales pitch of, oh, it's Pokemon with guns and ran with it? Because it's not Pokemon with guns. It's Arc with Pokemon. It's very different, right? It's not Pokemon. It's not. If you just want a Pokemon game, you might not like this. But if you like Monster Tamers, you'll probably like this, The whole controversy is fucking stupid, and it's with every good game that comes out now. Every good game has a fucking controversy around it. Like, every game that becomes popular has a fucking controversy around it. Every single fucking time. And then when a bad game comes out, and a lot of people are like, oh, this game is terrible, it's doing these anti-consumer practices, it's got lazy writing, lazy character design, people are like, oh, you're just a bunch of toxic male gamers. It's just like, it's the same shit over and over again. This is why we cannot have nice things. Because people are just dumb. But anyway,
there are my thoughts on Palworld and why it ruined my sleeping pattern, because it's an amazing game. It's deserves the recognition it's getting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more comes from it. But yeah, bye for now.